Did you know that 50% of readers abandon a book before they even reach the halfway point? Shocking, right? It's not because they don't like the story, it's because the middle of the book starts to drag. You've probably heard the phrase, the hardest part of writing is the beginning. But what about the middle? For many writers, the middle is where things start to fall apart. The excitement of the opening fades, and the finish line feels too far away. But here's the thing, the middle is where you can make or break your book. According to a survey of 10,000 readers, pacing was the #1 reason people put a book down, and guess where pacing issues often show up? That's right, the middle. In this video, we'll dive deep into the 6 biggest mistakes new writers make in the middle of their book. We'll talk about how to avoid losing momentum, creating flat characters, and giving too much unnecessary information. Stick with me, and I'll show you how to make your middle chapter a page turner, not a drag. Let's get started. Chapter 1, The Dreaded Slump. Why the middle is a graveyard. The middle of your book can feel like a graveyard, a place where your story goes to die. This is often referred to as the middle slump. It's where the initial excitement from your opening starts to fade, and the finish line still feels far away. Many new writers get stuck here. According to literary agent Donald Maass, the middle section is where the true test of a writer's craft is. Without careful attention, pacing can slow down, and you might lose the drive to push your story forward. To avoid this, break up the monotony. You can't just have your characters wandering aimlessly. Introduce new obstacles, conflicts, or unexpected twists. For instance, in The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, Katniss faces rising tension between her alliances. This deepens her internal conflict and propels the story forward, even in the middle. Another great strategy is to break your book into mini-goals for your characters. Every few chapters, ask, what's the immediate goal my protagonist is working toward? When you have clear mini-goals, it keeps the reader invested. Remember, the middle isn't the time to coast. It's the place to turn up the heat. Chapter 2, The Info Dump Trap. Don't bore your readers. We've all seen it, the dreaded info dump. You're world building, or you need to explain some backstory, and suddenly, you find yourself writing pages of explanation. It's a mistake many new writers make. When you over-explain, especially in the middle of the book, the pacing grinds to a halt, and your reader's interest starts to drop. In fact, according to a 2016 survey by Goodreads, 42% of readers said they abandoned a book due to slow pacing. That's a lot of readers you could lose if you're not careful. Instead of dumping information, find ways to weave it in naturally through dialogue or action. Take a page from Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. She doesn't just give us the full backstory on Hogwarts. Instead, she drops hints throughout the series, making us curious to learn more. You can do this too, small, intriguing details sprinkled in are more powerful than lengthy explanations. Use your characters to reveal the world. Maybe a character overhears a conversation or comes across an old letter that offers just the right amount of context. By sprinkling in your world building gradually, you keep the reader engaged and avoid dragging down your story with unnecessary details. Chapter 3, The Diminishing Stakes. Why tension must escalate as you reach the middle of your story. The stakes need to rise. If they don't, your readers will start to lose interest. In fact, the middle of your book is the perfect time to increase the pressure. When tension drops in the middle, it can leave the reader with a feeling of, is that it? It's an easy mistake to make when you focus too much on character development or subplots without raising the stakes. Take The Lord of the Rings as an example. In the middle of the book, Frodo and Sam continue their journey, but the dangers escalate. Every moment is filled with rising tension, whether it's the looming threat of Sauron or the risk of betrayal. This consistent rise in stakes is what keeps readers turning the pages. You want to make sure that your main character isn't just facing the same challenge over and over again. They need to be constantly tested, both physically and emotionally. To do this, think about how your character's journey is changing. Are they getting closer to their goal? Are the risks becoming greater? You might also consider introducing a secondary conflict that challenges the protagonist's original goal. In The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins, the protagonist's mental instability starts to interfere with her investigation, raising the stakes both for the plot and her character. This makes the middle of the book as compelling as the beginning. If you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more writing tips to make your story unforgettable. Chapter 4. The One-Note Protagonist. Don't let your hero flatline. A flat, one-dimensional protagonist can kill your story. The middle is the time when your protagonist should be evolving, and if they're not, it can make the entire story feel stagnant. In the middle of The Great Gatsby, Nick Carraway doesn't just observe the world around him, he begins to question it and grows emotionally. He doesn't remain static, and this gives the story depth. Your protagonist's internal journey is just as important as their external one. To avoid creating a one-note character, make sure your hero's goals, motivations, or relationships are evolving. A great tip is to look at your protagonist's weaknesses in the middle. Ask, what fears, doubts, or flaws is my protagonist confronting at this point? By challenging your character in new ways, you allow him to grow and make the journey more engaging for readers. Don't be afraid to complicate your character's feelings or decisions. In To Kill a Mockingbird, Scout Finch's growth is subtle yet powerful. As the story progresses, Scout's understanding of the world deepens, especially as she confronts issues of racial injustice. The middle of the book is when she shifts from innocence to a more complex view of her society, and this character evolution is one of the main reasons the novel remains so memorable. Chapter 5. The Lack of Foreshadowing. A missed opportunity. Foreshadowing is one of the most important tools in a writer's toolbox, especially in the middle of a story. When done well, it creates tension and gives readers a satisfying payoff later in the book. If you don't drop subtle hints early on, you risk the danger of a sudden twist that might feel forced or unbelievable. For example, in The Sixth Sense, the twist works because the film uses foreshadowing from the beginning, even if viewers don't realize it until the end. One powerful way to use foreshadowing is through imagery. Think about the way the color red is used in The Shining by Stephen King. Early references to red objects, like the red bathroom and the red tricycle, build a sense of dread and hint at the horrors to come. When done subtly, foreshadowing keeps the reader curious and invested in what will happen next. It's not just about throwing in random hints, it's about laying a trail that leads to something bigger. The middle of your story is perfect for foreshadowing because it gives you the chance to introduce key elements that will pay off later. Whether it's a piece of dialogue, a strange occurrence, or even a recurring symbol, use the middle to prepare your readers for the climax. Readers love when they go back to earlier parts of the book and realize that everything was connected. So be deliberate about foreshadowing. It builds anticipation, adds layers to your plot, and makes your story feel cohesive. Chapter 6. The Pacing Pitfall. Don't let your middle drag. Pacing is everything. A slow middle can cause your readers to lose interest fast. In fact, research by Nielsen Book Scan shows that books with slow pacing often have lower sales and receive more negative reviews. The middle is a critical point in any story, and if it lingers too long without progress, your readers will start to tune out. The trick is to keep things moving without losing emotional depth. One way to keep pacing steady is to alternate between action scenes and moments of character introspection. In The Martian by Andy Weir, Mark Watney's constant struggle for survival creates high-intensity moments, but the story also takes time to develop his thoughts and humor. This balance keeps the pacing fast but not rushed. Another tactic is to layer multiple storylines or conflicts. Take The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson, where the main investigation keeps progressing, but other subplots, like the personal struggles of the protagonists, add depth to the narrative. These subplots can keep the middle fresh and prevent it from becoming predictable or boring. You can also consider switching up the perspective for a chapter or two. By providing a different character's point of view, you can add intrigue while advancing the plot. In A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, alternating between different POVs keeps the pacing fast, even in the middle of the book. It allows the story to unfold from multiple angles and keeps readers eager to see what happens next. The key to pacing is not just about speed, it's about rhythm. You want to keep things moving, but you also want to give your readers moments to breathe. Keep the tension high, and don't let your middle get bogged down in filler.